you guys. Good afternoon. Welcome to Inclusion Matters by Shane's Inspiration and our Lunch and Learn. We're thrilled that you guys are here. Laura Braverman. Each side. You look great. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. We're thrilled that you're here. And, all of you mostly know who we are, but I'm just going to give a brief overview for those who don't. Inclusion Matters by Shane's Inspiration is a nonprofit, a global nonprofit organization that's been working for the past 20 years to dissolve bias towards children with disabilities through both the design and development of inclusive playgrounds in communities, and then through our school programming and our community programming, where we have inclusive play dates on our playgrounds. We have an education program that's been in over 200 schools now. And then we replicate our programming nationally and internationally so that the playgrounds really become classrooms where children with and without disabilities begin to find more compassion, more connection, and more awareness through play. So that's who we are. I want to, first of all, thank you, Breathe for Change, for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Glad you guys are here. And thank you to Jennifer Quick. I'm going to hand it off to Jennifer to introduce herself, and then we'll introduce our wonderful experts on mindfulness for people of all abilities. So.
Great. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jennifer Quick. I am the Education Program Manager at Inclusion Matters by Shane's Inspiration. I have the wonderful opportunity to really go into the classrooms and bring ability awareness conversations and tips and tools to our students of typical developing needs, and then I'm able to be on the playground with them and connect them to their peers with disabilities. So I get to be boots on the ground, be with teachers and be with paraprofessionals and children. So I really love my work. It's my 12th year here. And I also was a graduate from Breathe for Change, 2017.
Yes, you were.
Yes. So it's a wonderful blend for me today to be with, this wonderful organization that I work for, and then to bring in Breathe for Change. So thank you everyone for coming.
All right. So we're going to introduce you, Alana and Yen, quickly. And you guys will speak for yourselves more proficiently than we will. But Dr. Alana Nankin is the founder and CEO of Breathe for Change. She is a longtime teacher and teacher educator, and really began in her practice to understand the incredible stress that educators are under, and how by shifting mindset, by shifting practice, by shifting your relationship to your work and yourself and self-care, that you can then expand the impact that you have. So they've reached over 4,000 educators at this point. And Yen is Alana's partner in business and in life. And he's an empathetic, goal-oriented business expert and community leader, committed to making the world a more inclusive place. So his background is in finance and computer science from Wharton Business School. So they are both here to share their knowledge with us, and take it away. We're excited to have you.
Well, thank you all so much. We honestly couldn't be more excited to be here and to meet all of you and to share our story and hopefully some practices that will support you all in not only taking care of yourselves, but also all of our kids and those that you work most closely to or that are your own children. So as these beautiful people just introduced, I'm Ilana, and I'm the founder and CEO of Breathe for Change. And like she mentioned, I am actually a former pre-K teacher. So these are some of my kids. I taught pre-K in a Spanish dual immersion school in San Francisco. And when I was teaching, I was stressed and overwhelmed and overworked. And that's when I first found yoga. And I ended up integrating these practices, completely transformed my well-being. And I ended up integrating so many of the practices into my classroom with my kids, and just saw remarkable transformations in them, both social, emotionally, but also academically too. And I was like, there is something going on here. So I ended up pursuing my PhD in curriculum and instruction at University of Wisconsin and became a teacher educator. And through my research, just realized how universal the issue of teacher stress and burnout truly is. And we know that that translates to any caregiver, so parents as well. And also how powerful these wellness and yoga and social emotional learning practices can be for teachers and students' lives. So I was like, nothing's going to stop me. And this was in 2015. I'm going to start an organization and movement that aims to enhance the health and well-being of educators, students, families, and communities across the country and world. And I'm going to start the world's only 200-hour wellness and yoga teacher training specifically for educators and community leaders who really care about using wellness as a vehicle to create inclusive spaces and to really create social change. So like she had mentioned, we've already graduated in the last 5 years now. 4,000 educators, including Jennifer from across the country. And we are here to share some of our tips and tricks, not only to do with our kids, but most importantly, to start with ourselves. And I'll let Yen, you introduce yourselves, but he's my love, and we met when we were 14, the day before the first day of high school. And I walked up to him and I saw him in the rally court of our school, and I said, "Hi, will you be my friend?" And that was the first thing. And then 20 years later, here we are. So Yen, introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Yen Trang. As Alana had said, we had met in high school, and my personal story with Breathe for Change was my mom, unbeknownst to me, had taken the Breathe for Change training. And it was just so powerful to see the shifts that were occurring in her. And that just made me know that I'd want to help bring this movement to the next level. All of my previous past has been working in the corporate sector in finance and technology, and wanted to utilize my skills to help bring this to more folks. But taking a step even further, another reason the Breathe for Change mission really resonates with me is because how important I've seen wellness in my own life, but also wellness in the life of my parents and the life of my teachers growing up. I was born with achondroplasia, which is a form of dwarfism. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see my arms through the screen, but my arms are a little shorter, shorter. And they actually don't go all the way straight. So like jumping jacks were always a little hard for me because I couldn't like straighten my arms the entire way. It would only go up like here. And just the way in which my parents and brother raised me as a community, and how I know it took a lot of time and effort from them to do it. And I'm confident that the only way they were able to make it through it was to also prioritize their own self-care and wellness. And my parents had their own wellness practices that only upon recent reflection, I realized it just looked a little different from what I may have traditionally thought of. Like my parents would spend time gardening, or that was their own type of wellness practice and that their own type of mindful movement. So the mission of Breathe for Change really resonates with me. And when the opportunity came to help collaborate with my partner in crime to help bring this to the next level, I couldn't be more excited. So looking forward to spending the next 30, 45 minutes with all of you and sharing with you and learning from you what we have to offer.
And one thing that I'll brag about for a moment, because Yen won't brag about this for himself, is that Yen, when we were in high school, he had surgery on both of his legs because they were very bowed, and he'd be in a wheelchair with two legs out, and I would go to his house all the time, and we weren't sure if he would ever be able to run at all. And he has run the last 6 Boston marathons and holds the world record for the fastest little person in the world by over 50 minutes. So in terms of resilience and also humility, this one truly knows what it takes to, take care of himself and also believe in himself. And so we're here to support you in finding some practices for yourself that will, allow you to do the same. So I'm going to share my screen for just a moment. So like we had mentioned, today is not just about everyone else that you care for. We know that you're constantly giving so much of your heart and soul to those that you love, your students, your kids, and that it's also about you. So the first intention, that's Yen, putting me up in a, what's that called? We're acro yoga.
Acro yoga.
So the first step is we want you to prioritize your own well-being and practice taking care of you, because that is, as we'll talk about more, the really the heart of this work. And secondly, we'll learn some social emotional learning and mind body wellness practices that you can use with your children and students of all types of abilities and disabilities. So let's focus on the taking care of you piece. So one thing that we always do at Breathe for Change and all of our trainings and any session we lead or workshop is start with a settle in. So if all of you can just find yourself in a comfortable seated or standing position, you can also chill out, lay down on the floor. We're talking inclusive practices. You do you. Just find whatever position you'd like to play around in. And we'll start with some breathing, and then we'll move into some movement. So bring one hand to your heart and the other over that hand, and connect to your breath. Observing the rise and the fall of each inhale and each exhale. And as you continue to breathe in and out, I invite you to check in with how you're feeling right now. Just noticing, drawing your awareness to your emotions, your feelings. And at Breathe for Change, one of our favorite social emotional learning strategies is called the 2-word check-in. So just taking this time to choose 2 words that describe how you're feeling. Just 2 words. And when you have those 2 words, if your eyes are closed, you can gently open them. And then we'll use some really cool Zoom tools. And if you'd like, you can find that chat icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen and just chat in the 2 words of how you're feeling and also the city or state where you're coming from so we can see who's in the space. So just chat in those 2 words. This is an awesome practice to use with your kids, with yourself every day to check in. Happy, excited, grateful, calm, connected, grateful, relaxed. Ooh, we got lots of people from all over, energized and content, peace, light,
Mexico.
Happy, relaxed. We got California, New Mexico.
Exhausted. It's been a long week.
Yep. So the beauty of a practice like the 2-word check-in, it's so simple, yet so profound. Whether you're working one-on-one with your own kid or your partner or a student, or you're in a collective group like we all are on Zoom, or when we can be in person, this is such an amazing practice that you can use to really get a pulse of how people are feeling and to teach or to lead or to interact from that space. So I highly recommend integrating this 2-word check-in into your daily life and your teaching. And the beauty is that every single day, every single time you use it, even if it's just a personal check-in, it's going to be different. And that is what's so beautiful about emotions is that there's a spectrum, and especially in today when there's so much change and uncertainty in the world, accessing and drawing our awareness to our emotions, which is mindfulness inherently, is a really powerful way to understand where we are, but also, use some additional practices that will teach you to shift into something that will serve you.
And so now that we've connected with our breath, let's get into our bodies a little bit more. I know it's been a long week for a lot of us, and then probably a lot of Zoom meetings, sitting behind desks. So one of our favorite practices also during settling in is mindful movement. So whether or not you're sitting in a chair or standing up, wherever you are, find yourself in either a comfortable seated position or a comfortable stance. And we'll do a couple of mindful movements all together.
So you stand, I'll sit.
Yeah.
How's that?
So yeah, we'll show both. So if you're standing, so take a big inhale in as you raise your arms up. And then if your hands can reach, which most might, but mine don't, put them together and then bring them back down to heart center. And we'll just do 2 more together. Big inhale, arms up, hands touch, and then exhale, hands back to heart center. And then breathe 1 more back in with your intention, up, hands touch, and then your last big exhale out. And then maybe as your hands are together, stretch your palms forward. Probably doing a lot of typing on the keyboard. And then maybe put it in the other direction. And then maybe get in some little shoulder rolls forward. Some shoulder rolls backwards. And then maybe involve your neck just slowly to one side, and then slowly to the other side. And then you can add different variations of this to varying levels of movement. We found it to be helpful both in terms of helping settle in and focus during transition periods. So we have sessions like this in our work meetings. So this is often how we'll begin a work meeting, the 2-word check-in, some mindful movement. And this is something that's been totally new to me, coming from, I used to work at a hedge fund, I used to work on Wall Street, and my first impression was like, we're wasting time. Why are we taking breaths? Why are we like stretching?
Let's get to business.
Let's get down to these Excel spreadsheets. But then what I realized is like in taking those 2 minutes, those 3 minutes to collect and connect with your breath, settle in, and do some mindful movement, that makes the remainder of the 30 minutes, the 1-hour meeting, so much better. So it's good for your soul. It's good for productivity. It's just good all around. So those are some offerings, and you can obviously add your own variations to that. In the way that might make most sense for the folks that are in the meeting.
And one of the beautiful things about breathing techniques or mindful movement, which the intention of mindful movement, like Yen just showed us, is really to connect your breath and to movement. So like inhale, exhale. You could do anything you want. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, love. Exhale, bring it back in. So there's so many ways that you can offer mindful movement. You do not need to be a certified yoga teacher to integrate any of these practices into your daily life and your teaching. But the thing about using these practices is inclusively, and this is what we talk about all the time in our trainings, is using, like, it's so important to use permission-based language. So we're not forcing anyone, do this with us now. It's an offering. We invite you to take 3 collective breaths with us. Take a big breath in, And a big breath out. Inhale. Exhale.
Or when we say close your eyes or find a soft gaze, those are other types of permissions-based languaging. Or put your hands up, and sometimes they may touch, or as high as you can. So because as we know, adults and kids are in different situations. So making it specific, but also providing the opening and flexibility for folks to realize that it's possible for them too.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things in terms of trauma-informed practice, when we're thinking about something as simple yet like foundational and important as breathing and literally just connecting to our breath, is we want to encourage, especially when working with children, the natural flow of the breath. It's really, it can be a potential danger or a no-no to say, like, to have people restrict, or kids especially, restrict their breath on the top of the inhale, because that ultimately, especially for students or kids who have experienced, or any of us adults who have experienced trauma, often when you're in a traumatic state or like the panic zone, you hold your breath and it's short. So in these breathing techniques, the intention is really to connect to the natural flow of the breath and to support, to invite in, all right, inhale and exhale, but we're not saying hold your breath at the top. We're literally just having them bring awareness to your breath or awareness to your emotions, like we did with the 2-word check-in. And then once we have the awareness, that's when ultimately we gain the power to shift or change or to deepen our inhales or deepen our exhales. So using that natural language to guide us into a state that will connect us first is really a powerful tool when we're facilitating these practices for other people, especially young people.
Ilana and Yen, can I just jump in really quickly?
Yeah, totally.
So just so that thought doesn't leave my head. And I think once we're done, what I'd love to do, because I loved your reference to trauma-informed practice, because I think for a lot of our kiddos, you know, whether they have a sensory processing disorder and are derailed by that change in schedule, the lack of continuity, right? That if you guys just have at the end tips and tools that would strengthen that, like here's a good breathing exercise to help re-regulate, calm the nervous system. Yeah, I just think that stuck in my mind as a really wonderful tool and tip for teachers and those of us who are parents. So,
beautiful. And
yeah,
I love that you mentioned that. These practices that we're sprinkling in are amazing opportunities to do consistently. So when your kids wake up at home every morning, let's start our morning with 3 collective breaths together. Take a big breath in and a big breath out. Inhale, exhale, breathe in, out with an audible sigh. And let's check in and see how we're feeling this morning. And you could do the 2-word check-in. Or if you're a teacher and you're facilitating a conversation with one of your students or with multiple students, you can start class every single time. Get that routine with these practices. Thank you so much for bringing that up. The routine is everything. And the power of doing it consistently is that once your kids are feeling like, oh, this is something that I do, I know how to do this practice, then when they get stressed, when that moment happens of, or panic, then they will start to realize, oh, I can take 3 collective breaths here. And so one of the things that we constantly talk about at Breathe for Change is the critical importance of asking reflection questions after we facilitate these practices. So for example, let's say, actually do this with us. So find a comfortable position. Bring your hands to your heart or over your lap, somewhere comfortable for you that allows you to connect. And just take a moment to observe the natural flow of your inhales and your exhale. And as parents, as educators, as community leaders, we're giving so much of ourselves to others. So just take this moment to turn inward and consider, what are my intentions for my own well-being? How can I fill my own cup? Take that space to care for me, so that I can do all the beautiful work that I'm here to give to others. Just allowing yourself to set an intention. Perhaps it's taking more time and space in the day for you. Maybe to have that nice bath, to go on a walk, to write in a gratitude journal. Just maybe it's attending to your physical well-being, your emotional well-being. Just setting that intention. When you have that intention, you can open your eyes if they're closed. And I would love to hear from a couple of you. You can chat in your intention, or if you'd like, let's see if I can pull this off. You can. Do you see this, everyone? Is there a whiteboard in front of you? So if you'd like, you can actually write your intention on this whiteboard. You can use any of the cool features.
Bring your mouse to the top. There should, a little drop down should come down.
It should say view options at the top. You click annotate on the scroll down, and then you can start playing around. So you can see how this is an example of a, we know that especially working with students and kids with varying abilities and disabilities, having different learning modalities is so critical. And so this is an example of a different way that you can have people process things. So writing is a beautiful opportunity. You can invite people to journal or to draw how they're feeling. You can do this for yourself. You guys rock. I like you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And it's amazing.
Thinking, reconnecting with old friends.
There's the drawing, there's the typing, there's the different colors.
Unfortunately, my handwriting looks even worse than it normally does. So
emoji.
Annotate is not helping me with handwriting skills.
Well, so there's the beauty, you can text it. So there's a text box that you can use to type. So this is a really cool feature on Zoom that, especially in the classroom setting or in a group setting, now that we're digital and, some people may really benefit from learning and expressing themselves this way. It's awesome. Oh, yoga, love, hot bath. I like that. Check mark.
Yeah.
That was mine. Whoever wrote baking has wonderful annotated handwriting.
Yeah.
That was so cool. So in terms of intention setting, so all of you just took a few moments to set an intention for your well-being. And the reason that we had you setting your intention for your well-being is because it is absolutely so natural for us to give so much of ourselves to others. And like Yen was saying in the beginning, as educators, as parents, it is just critical to embody the practices that we're teaching our kids. At Breathe for Change, we tag on the F to SEL, social emotional learning, because it spells self. And we truly believe that it's so important for us to be living and breathing and practicing these things these wellness tools that we want to instill in and share with our kids to support them in their daily lives.
And it's from this place of practicing our own self-care that I feel it gives permission for others to do so as well. what I found was like, for me, the teachers that helped shape me to become who I am today, they prioritize their own self-care so much, not in a selfish way, but in a way of, they knew that only by putting their own oxygen mask on first could they then provide the oxygen for others. And I'll never forget when I was in kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher, Miss Pavlos, I still am in touch with her today, like 28 years later, one of the most influential people in my life. I just started in kindergarten, was having a tough time getting into school, was getting teased a lot. And my kindergarten teacher with my parents helped organize an assembly. They invited some individuals from Little People of America, which is a national nonprofit organization that helps out individuals with dwarfism and their respective families. And one of the elder statesmen, if you will, of the organization, her name was Harriet Stickney. She was 4 foot, maybe 3'9", but she had a commanding presence. And then one day there was an assembly, and I thought it was an assembly for everyone, but little did I know it was an assembly just for me. So the 500 kids went into the assembly, multi-use room, and there was an assembly on diversity and differences. She brought up 2 kids with red hair and said, "Oh, would you make fun of someone if they had red hair?" The kid said, "No." They said, "Who has blue eyes?" And people raised their hands, and she said, "Oh, would you make fun of someone just because they have blue eyes?" And the kids were like, "No." And then she brought up me and the tallest kid in kindergarten to the front of the room. But they had us sit on a chair. And for those who are familiar with individuals with dwarfism, my legs are shorter, but my torso is the same size. So we had me and Paul sit on the chair together, and I was actually a little bit taller than him, probably because my larger head. And Harriet said, "Would you make fun of Paul because Yen is taller than Paul?" And the kids are like, "No." And then Harriet had me stand up, and then suddenly it was like
like this.
Yeah.
Stand up.
It was like something like this, like. and then the punchline was, "Would you make fun of Yen because he's not as tall as Paul?" And
dead silence.
It was dead silence. It was like one of those trick questions. And I only share that, anecdote because Harriet Stickney, rest her soul, she embodied this practice of wellness so much that you could just see in her that she prioritized her own wellness and mindfulness, that she just commanded the presence of the entire multi-use room when she came in. And it was only from that place that she even had the capacity to fly from Michigan to California to do this assembly for someone who she had never met before. So it was coming from that place of taking care of ourselves, which I know it's often hard for me to do, that we have this space to ultimately take care of others. And I just wanted to share that anecdote.
And I'll never forget, we ran student government together in high school, and he got a call one day from his kindergarten teacher. How many years later? 13 years later.
Yeah, I was a senior in high school.
And she said, "Hey, Yen, I have a child in my class, Cassandra, and she has dwarfism, and the kids are making fun of her. Can you come back and lead the assembly?" And he watched the VCR video of that his dad had recorded over and over again, and went back and did the exact same assembly. And him and Cassandra are still in touch 17 years later or something like that. So that moment, I mean, I've seen it in Yen, the moment that, you never know what you can do in a moment. Yeah. And that moment for Yen in kindergarten completely shaped his life. Like, every kid at school wanted to be friends with Yen. He was the class president every single year of middle school. When he came to my high school, he ran student government. He was the head of the editorial magazine and leading things, and then had the resilience to run the Boston Marathon. And like when you think about those pivotal moments of when we're engaging with our kids, how we show up is so much related to the messages that we're sending externally. And so we'll leave you with one.
Can I jump in really quickly before you jump to your last exercise? I love, Yen, what you were just speaking to, and I think as educators, it's, when we talk about social emotional learning, and we all know what the pillars are, we know what the curriculum looks like, but to really have an understanding of your own sense of resilience and wellness, to be able to even teach children how to be socially aware, how to be self-resilient, how to examine impulse control, But for you, that was really powerful to me. And maybe as we start wrapping up, we could look at, what are just like 5 key things for kids. But I think to be aware of our own inner life is a piece, it's a beat that gets missed. So I think it makes it even more challenging to teach SEL, in the classroom or on the playground if we're not aware of our own internal world. So that was
And what I often say is, it's so amazing, and even more important now than ever, that like social emotional learning is being more taken up and prioritized. It's phenomenal. And there's a lot of work to be done, because what's happening is a lot of people are handed a lesson plan, go teach empathy, and you're pissed off, you're upset, you're like stressed out. And it's like, what kind of messages, our kids learn from modeling and from experiencing that, and they take on, we have mirror neurons in our brain, and those mirror neurons are literally like how someone else shows up or how we show up deeply impacts, and we take on how the other person is showing up. And so when we, what we do have control of is how we show up. Are we being self-aware? Are we responding versus reacting? How are we checking in? Are we taking those deep breaths? Are we making those moments of pause? Are we shifting our mindset from focusing on all the things that isn't working to instead like waking up or ending your day with thinking about or speaking out loud to someone that you love 3 things that you're grateful for? Like when you are in a place of like just drawing on gratitude is probably the number one thing that I would recommend that we do, and that we also teach our kids to do, and ask them, what are you grateful for right now?
So we shared an amalgamation of different strategies, and you probably recognize bits and pieces of them as they came up. But just to recap, I don't remember what order we went them in, but there was the 2-word check-in, like how are we feeling now after we connected with our breath? There was the mindful movement. There was the setting your own intention for your well-being, so like the inward reflection.
The 2-word check-in. And the one thing that we didn't say yet is the gratitude piece. So a couple things for gratitude is, one, sharing, asking your kids or yourself 3 things you're grateful for. We do this every single night. It's the last thing we do before we go to sleep. We turn to each other and we say, what are 3 things you're grateful for about today? So that our minds are like going to sleep with like gratitude. Totally allows, it's like changed my sleep in we tried this like 6 months ago. Every single morning, the first thing we do when we wake up is we sit and we breathe and just meditate for a little bit. And then when we're done with that, we turn to each other and we share our intentions for the day. So how can you do this not only for yourself, but also if you're doing it for yourself, you're naturally going to say, hey kids, let's do this together. And then you can live and breathe it, and it feels really aligned. So really hope that you take a few of these practices and just start to incorporate them into your daily lives, and that this can be something that only continues to grow. So, at Breathe for Change, this is what we do for educators and parents all over the country all the time. And so we are also have a lot of resources. We have a bunch of free webinars and yoga classes and other things that you can access for more tools every single week, which we'll share with you. And we're also doing a mind, body, wellness, and social emotional learning training this summer for adults, for parents and educators, as well as a yoga teacher training and social emotional learning facilitator certification over the falls. And we also do professional development with schools, districts, and organizations. So if any of you are interested in any of that, we'll make sure to share it with you. And so grateful to be here.
Oh, thank you for being here. Do you guys want to share that brief, wonderful video?
Oh, yeah.
Can we share that just to hear kind of people's perspectives on the work?
Yes.
Breathe for Change is transformational.
Breathe for Change is one of the best programs that I've been able to partake in, and I've taken a lot.
It has made me a better person already, and certainly a better educator.
I've paid way more for way less.
We know that we need something more. And this allows us to bring more.
Your life's going to shift for the better. And that's what Breathe for Change is for me. I've never felt as centered in my life.
The perspective that I have now, the acceptance that I have, it's amazing. It's amazing. Thank you.
Beautiful. Good. We would love to open it up to questions in case anyone has any questions, for you both. So if you want, you can use the raise your hand function, and we'll grab your questions from there. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, because I was just thinking about this, we were talking about changes in your students. Can you give us just a couple, like 3 concrete examples of once you started using mindfulness? What were, like 3 concrete changes that you saw in your classroom?
So for example, when I was a pre-K teacher and when I first found yoga and mindfulness and I started like realizing, oh my God, this is amazing. I would go and practice every day before class. And I started integrating it into my classroom with my kids. And whenever on certain days, when I was like a little antsy or stressed out, my kids would go, Miss Ilana, did you miss yoga today? Because they could literally see in me the difference of like my reactivity. And then they would be like, Miss Ilana, take 3 collective breaths with me. And so the kids start facilitating things. Or for example, I would teach mindful listening, like, and the peace process is how we called it in my pre-K classroom, of like, how do you share, I feel this because this, so would you, or like, and solve the problem. And we would do it in the peace corner. So I'd give them some like sentence frames. And at first I had to model it a ton. Like I would do it with them. I would make up examples of how you solve problems or something. Within 2 months, 3 months, I never had one child tattle to me ever again. It was literally like, Miss Ilana, we solved our problem in the peace corner. Now he gets 3 bears and I get 2. And this happens with middle school students, high school students, college students, adults. It's literally about supporting students in their emotional vocabulary, connecting them to how they feel. And then once you give them a model for how to communicate, you see rapid results, and the beauty is they embody it for themselves. So it's no longer your responsibility, which is enormous.
That's huge. And I think, we've seen that certainly on the playground, where as soon as you give kids without disabilities just a couple tips and tools and some language and a way to step into a new experience, then you can back away quickly and the inclusion happens because now they know, like, oh, here's where I go next. And it is really, really wonderful. You're right. You can step away and see them grow in a way that you couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
So that's powerful. Does anyone, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I had one student once, Jessica, my darling, and she couldn't speak at all. She had no ability to talk. And so when we would teach these practices, we would all work together as a classroom to figure out, how do we make this inclusive for Jessica? And the kids would figure that out on their own, and they would bring Jessica to the Peace Corner and she would help facilitate in different ways. And it was the most beautiful thing ever, because not only did it empower Jessica to have the same ability to communicate and to process and to help solve problems, but it also taught other kids how to be inclusive in a way that they wouldn't have otherwise thought necessarily. And so intentionally creating that inclusive space to ask your students, your kids, how can we modify and adapt this and make this inclusive? Inviting them into that conversation is huge, because they own it, they take it on, and they feel that sense of connection and empathy and community in that process.
Absolutely. Do we have any questions from our wonderful attendees here? Ask away, raise your hand.
I have a question.
Yes.
Ilana, when you were in your classroom and your children were now embodying all of the prompts and tools and ways of mindfulness and movement, did that seep into home life? Did you get any feedback from?
Oh my gosh. Did it ever?
And what did that look like?
I'll never forget. It was November. I would start this in the beginning of the school year. November parent-teacher conferences. I mean, obviously I was a pre-K teacher, so I saw parents every day, but at conferences, I would sit down with every single one, and they would be like, what are you doing with our kids? Every time I get frustrated or I get upset, my kid comes up to me, puts their hand on my back, says, it's okay, Mom, let's just do some breathing together. Or so then all of a sudden it really facilitated that homeschool connection, and the parents wanted more. So then I would do after school classes for the parents. And then all of a sudden other teachers at my school were like, what's happening in the pre-K world? Because my siblings siblings from that class are coming in. Then it became a part of, I started doing it at the staff meeting, and now all the teachers were doing it. And then it became an entire school movement that just started literally because I was doing the practice myself. And naturally it came into, it wasn't something I planned out the whole year lesson plan. This was literally, I just would integrate it into everything else I was already doing. And so it's not a different, social emotional learning is not a different subject. It is not like this thing that you're like, I need to plan 10 minutes of social emotional learning today. It's, how do I literally integrate this into who I am as an educator, as a parent, as a human being? How do I embody these competencies? And then thus it becomes a part of everything. And it's not different from academics at all. It's actually one and the same. And my dissertation only demonstrated that critical connection between teacher and adult well-being and student learning, and that those things are so intricately connected. And it's when we actually realize that there's power, because it's about who we are, how we're showing up, and that infuses all the other things that we do.
Looks like we have a question from Jozan, our good friend Jozan.
Yeah, do you want to unmute yourself? Can you?
Or I could read it for her.
Okay, there it is.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. And this is a wonderful presentation. And I love Yen's particular, how that became like a generational shift from your teacher to you to the other young lady. It's a beautiful story. Yeah. Well, I was wondering, did you do any collective, to find out how much this had changed the school's disruptions? Because that's usually, playground disruptions and all that. Did this make a marked difference in the schools that you worked in?
Oh, there's no question. Such a great question. In my school, we saw phenomenal, like I would always say, instead of detention centers, we're sending kids to intention centers. So like literally shifting the whole language around like behavior management. It's like, how do we use empowering language, and instead of punishing kids, we're teaching them these tools to manage their emotions and be successful. And so we saw not just academic increases, so like literally grades increased, but also like a reduction in behavior issues that were reported to the principal. And we saw more parents involved at the community level and them learning and coming to family nights. We saw like on the playground. Oh my God, talk about playground. Oh my God. Oh, that person fell. Like, let's use this a loving kindness practice to support this kid and like managing that he's having a tantrum right now. Kids would start doing that. So we saw across the board anecdotal and qualitative as well as quantitative results in the test scores. But, you know, we've now certified over 4,000 educators through our yoga teacher training and social emotional learning facilitator certification program, which is what Jennifer graduated from. And like across the board, I mean, we have tens of thousands of surveys and actual like quantitative measures that demonstrate the enhancement in one, educator well-being and morale, their ability to successfully facilitate safe, inclusive spaces for their kids. We've seen, you know, increases in academic success for young people or their students who have teachers who are using these practices. So we're seeing things literally across the board all over the United States for people who are integrating, I mean, basic mindfulness, social emotional learning tools. The beauty of this work is it's actually simple. We all have it inside ourselves, and it's just, again, comes back to the embodiment piece. So yeah, the research is absolutely clear. And my 300-page dissertation also demonstrates that. And that's where, that's what really inspired me to start Breathe for Change in the first place, is that deep research that proved how powerful these tools really are.
And I think what's great about what you guys are doing, and we see this all the time, there's SEL curriculum out there, right? And it's some of it's good, some of it's a little challenging. But I think the challenge with it, and, you know, Laura Braverman could speak to this, Josanne could speak to this, so many of you, is that you have to meet the kids where they are. So you can't impose a curriculum on the child. You have to meet the child and give them tools that allows them to flourish at their own pace. Yeah. And that's critical to growth, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Do we have any, or, you know, I'd love to offer up too, I know we're running a little bit over. Does anyone have any tips and tools that you use? Especially right now in the age of Zoom, when we're Zooming with our kids and we're not able to give them a deep hug in person. You know, we're having to hug people virtually, which is a struggle. So if anyone has anything they want to share that's working for them, best practices or curriculum that you love, please either unmute or, you know, you could put it in the chat box. Oh, we've got Nicole raised her hand.
Yay!
Hi, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you so much for this. It was really like hit home as someone who, many of us have a lot of stuff going on in our lives and anxiety. It really, really helped to ground me. So first of all, thank you. And then I'm doing a program with our district where we're looking at incorporating technology with ITSE standards. And I wanted to focus on social emotional component as it relates to multi-tiered systems of support. I just finished my master's at Kelsey Dominguez, so I was hoping.
Congratulations!
Thank you, and you too for your work. So I was really excited to tune into the social emotional component because I feel like that's overtaken the academics right now. So I was just really interested to see, how we can support and model for our students to peer model, because I teach alternate curriculum, and we have good intentions and we put them on the playground. But then if I step into break and I don't support my assistant, he or she may not know how to facilitate that. So I think we really like some recommendations for how I can support the paraprofessionals on the yard would be great. Or, in the day-to-day things that we do with the typical and students with special needs would be really, really good. And just have seen some really great practices online. Our school psychologist displayed images with emojis and cats with different expressions, and the students who have limited language were able to really communicate and point to the emoji or the icon that they identified with. And it was it really helped change the dynamic of the class. So just wanted to share that with you guys.
Thank you. One of the things that I used to do in my own classroom when you said the emojis and stuff is I would have we'd always talk like, what does it look like to be sad? And they would like embody sadness. Or what does it look like to be mad? And frustrated. What does it feel like to be, happy or excited? And we would take pictures of the kids in each of those expressions. So like what that does is it welcomes all emotions. Like, let's embrace all the emotions. We all have all the emotions. And I would put them up on a wall with some words like happy, da, 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 and that helped them so they could like access and make themselves like point to where they feel, but they saw their own faces. And that was like a really powerful tool. Just to speak to specifically what you were saying around giving or helping people like your colleagues or other kids like embody this when you're not around. So first of all, the more that you're doing it with your para, she will see it and she will do it. So I would also encourage her to when you're doing these practices in your classroom, to also do them, participate with you and to speak to the benefits. So like, the research, the benefits, and the benefits can literally be your own experience. Share your experience. For me, Breathe for Change grew because I was like, this stuff works, you guys, like, do this, try it. And people were like, oh my God, even a few minutes of it was like, oh my God, this works. I want to do it. Then it's a movement that it just happens when you experience it. So I would recommend getting them to practice it with you. But with the kids and on the playground, one of the things that I would start to do is it takes a while to like make it a routine or to teach them to model. But after a while, I'd be like, who wants to lead chime time? Who wants to lead 3 collective breaths? And so the kids would be the leaders of these practices. I was just staying back and being a student. And so this also is a great way, especially with students who I'll never forget my Javier. He could not sit for the life of him for more than a second. He was running around the room. I was like, all right, there he goes again. And it frustrated me. I didn't know what to do at first. And then I asked him, I said, would you want to be like leading? Do you want to lead the stuff? And he became this like, I am the teacher. And it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. And then all of a sudden, all the other kids who had some trouble regulating their bodies and focusing, they wanted to be the leader. So then they had to embody it. So all of a sudden you see that there's a culture shift. And so I would also say, like, you don't need to be the one teaching it. Invite your kids to teach and let your para, like in front of you, bring your para in to teach. And giving and kind of playing, recognizing the role of teacher and student is reciprocal is so important in these practices. So
yeah, that's it. And I love the idea of modeling, which is something we advocate constantly when it comes to inclusion. because inclusion can look very different on different school campuses. So we always advocate, if you model just simple inclusive practices, everybody will pick up on them. You know, they will start to notice and see the benefit and then want to step in themselves. Chandra had a great, am I pronouncing your name right? I hope I am. Is that a correct pronunciation? Yeah, good. You had a wonderful comment about being a single mom and having your world rocked by, you know, schooling from home and having to meet all needs that arise throughout the day.
I see you. Yep.
Yeah, so it's hopefully this will be a benefit for you. Yeah, that's the goal, because it is very stressful. It really is. It's a very stressful time for people right now. So,
and you know, we started Breathe for Change specifically for educators, and ever since, I mean, I've always thought that parents are educators. We're all educators. And it takes a village, right? So, but this summer, especially since COVID happened, and parents are literally the teachers at home, whether or not we chose to be, or we wanted to be, we got that job. And so, the trainings that we're doing this summer are absolutely for parents as much as they are for classroom teachers, because it is so critically important now that you, one, take care of yourself, but also, you know, learn to manage the newness of what's happening and how you can best support your kids during this time. So I'm so excited. Hopefully we'll see you this summer.
Good. So I'm first of all, thank you both. This is exactly what we needed. So Lana and Yen, thank you. It's such an amazing opportunity to get a resource, even just the simple breathing and checking in. I'm gonna try it on my 16-year-old, so I'll let you know how that works.
Oh, I can't wait.
All right, I'll videotape it.
The older ones, let me tell you, with the older ones, they may be too cool in the beginning, but they love it. After a while, you know, they'll put on their thing, but it's about consistency, and it always is. So don't give up when you get that resistance. Keep going, keep practicing it yourself, and they'll come around.
There you go. Lead by example. I also, for our parents and educators, I wanted to offer you, we're going to wrap up now, but I'm going to put in the chat box a link to Inclusion Matters 30 Days of Play. You know, there's just a wealth of easy activities, whether it's music or speech or movement or sensory. So I'm going to pop that in the chat box, because that is another resource that I think as parents we can all benefit from. Alana and Yen, is there anything else you want us to put in the chat box before we go? We will also do a follow-up email. So any PDFs, anything that you want to
I would say check out, I put an extensive list of things in the follow-up email, including a link to our mind, body, wellness, and social emotional learning training, our yoga teacher training and social emotional learning facilitator program, if for those of you that want like an advanced deep dive this fall, as well as like professional development for those of you who are in schools and districts, and all of those things are relevant for communities, parents, educators. And then we also have like free, like I had mentioned, sessions like this all the time. And I teach yoga 3 times a week for you, those of you who want to come in. And so I'm actually teaching yoga in 2 hours for those of you who want. So if you see then that email, there'll be a link to our resource page, and you can come on in and then join me.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
There's too much to put in the chat. So I was like, let's just get it on a list in the email.
Of course. So we'll make sure that gets out. And I also, for those of you who are interested in inclusion, especially peer-based inclusion on your campus, I'm going to put a link right now in the chat box to our education program, Together We Are Able. And there's a free curriculum and a free online training. So just to kind of, as you're thinking forward on your school campus to deepen inclusion and inclusive practices, that resource is there for you as well. All right, you guys. So Alana, I'm going to be heading into your yoga class, my friend.
Yeah.
That sounds wonderful.
It'll take place right here with this background.
Beautiful. All right.
to the home.
Oh, that's great. And we've got a few wonderful comments. Thank you, everyone. I'm so excited to learn more. So yeah, this is wonderful. Thank you for this offering.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And also, if I know that some of you said that you're interested in our trainings, we also have at 3:00 Pacific time, there's a live webinar where I'm doing a deeper dive into what our trainings are. So for those of you who want to know more, you can find that on our website too.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Everyone.
Yeah,
it was so good to see you. Thank you both. All right, you guys have a wonderful weekend.